Yo, Chevy.
What's going on?
Tuesday night, 11 o'clock. It was a little tight for me to get here tonight, but you know what, buddy? We made it.
But you said you wanted a 10 o'clock show. Last week you got off. You're like, we should do the show at 10.
You know what?
Honestly, 11 o'clock saved your bacon again.
Yeah, listen, a buddy of mine said it to me this way. If we want our friends and build a community and we want everybody to listen, you got to, when you go fishing, you got to put your hook right at the level where all the fishes are. And once you start hitting my age, most of the fishes are asleep at 11 o'clock p.m., right? Well, that's all I'm saying. Maybe I should be asleep right now.
Well, we got some great, you got work to do after this. We got some great fishies already joining us here.
Hey,
it's going to be a great show tonight. You see, as I'm wearing my American bandana, saluting my American friends and the craziness that is the U.S. politics. The Hulkster, what you going to do, brother? Shows up at the Republican National Convention and kickstarts a whole sequence of events that we'll talk about in a bit. Sheldon, it's hot. It's like 38 degrees. What is that in U.S. temperature?
Well, you're getting into the hundreds at this point, right? So, and that was just for Calgary at our elevation of 3,500 feet. That's a rare thing to get up to 100 degrees, right? So, yeah, with the humidex today, I think it was 37 is what I heard. But
what's your favorite?
Hot. My truck said 40.
What's your favorite cool summer treat?
Oh, my favorite cool. You know what? Is just take me to the ice cream bar, and it's always a game time decision. I like, I used to love the waffle cone. I'm back to the old traditional cone. And I always get a double scoop with whatever two flavors are floating my fancy that day. Some days it's a coffee with a fruity. Some days it's a Saskatoon berry with a maple walnut, like the old throwbacks, right?
Yeah. What's your one go-to flavor? Like that's the one that you always want to say, well, I don't want to take it this time because I always get it. I want to try something new, but then you always wind up going back to it.
You know, I'm boring, but I usually like maples or butter rums is kind of my thing, or Saskatoon berries, right? Those are, it's kind of a wide branch, but that's yeah. Root beer float, Chevy. It's the root beer float.
Well, you just went 180 on yourself. For me, it's always the mint chip. If I'm gonna have two scoops, there's always the mint chip. I try and get away from it. I try and tell myself, hey, try something different. Try something with cherry. Try something with butterscotch. But the mint always calls me in. It sucks me back in. That's my favorite treat. And we've got a treat for all of you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about that political game, but not too much. We're going to talk about the Stamps game on the weekend, but not too much. And we're going to pose a question for you. What would you do? What would you do if your coach and your team said, hey, you got to blow it on purpose? Could you do it? Sheldon, could you do it? I don't know.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. We're going to give them a little bit more context and we're going to get into that. I think in the third, but we're going to paint a picture for you guys. And I want to get your opinion on how you would handle this because sometimes, folks, the world is not fair.
It's going to be a great show and welcome to the ride. Rubio types in, Sheldon, what the hell is a Saskatoon berry?
So, I'll tell you what, the truth is there's a name in the U.S. for this berry that's not a Saskatoon berry. Nobody knows about it. It's a berry that grows in a northern climate, and it's like a blueberry. It's blue, but it's more tart and more sweet. It is like the perfect berry ever. And Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, is just right in the region that I'm from, is where it kind of became famous, much like the Nanaimo bar was kind of created in Nanaimo on the island. The Saskatoon berries were invented in Saskatoon.
And the Hawaiian pizza was invented in Ontario.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's honestly, dude, it's the best berry ever. Rubio, you've still not come up here. When you come up here, there are so many things we want to introduce you to. I wish I could send you a Saskatoon berry pie. It's amazing. You're going to love it. Trust me. But yeah, it's a berry unique to the Pacific and prairie. Well, not the Pacific, but the prairies Northwest.
Sheldon, you're such a food aficionado. I tell you, in a couple of weeks, we're getting
we had them on our farm. We used to pick them all the time. But Chevy, I think we're getting a little bit distracted.
Let's not do it. Remember, we got to stick to the timelines. Otherwise, we're going to hit that overtime bell. And you know when Trey's going to play that song, the beep, beep, beep. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want it to come up now. But listen, Trey, Trey's doing a fantastic job as our producer. He's getting all the comments up. He's doing all this stuff in the background. He says his internet is shit in the bed, but I don't think it is. I think it's time for the poetry. And Trey, cue the music. Chevy and Nasty on a hot Tuesday night in summer. If we didn't show up for our regulars, it would be a terrible bummer.
Now, we don't normally do politics, but the last few weeks in the States has been real drama. It's been, in fact, a real circus down there. I think ever since Obama.
Ever since while he was there. So we will continue to follow to see what happens next. North American politics sure has us vexed.
With a new rink design and an official new name, Calgary jumps into the 21st century. But our team's kind of still the same.
The Flames, that is. And the Stamps this weekend beat the Lions in a surprisingly close game, while they honored the great Wally Buono up on their Hall of Fame.
Now the ride is on live, and the boys are here to stay. But if you miss us tonight, you can catch us tomorrow on Spotify. We're live the next day. Well, we're not live, but you can download us now on Spotify. Guys, we did it, folks. We did it.
We did it.
That's 300-pound poetry. And that is our official announcement that we are now live on Spotify.
Took us a while.
For all you guys that don't want to look at us, you kind of like what we talk about. You want to follow along at your own pace, but you can't bear seeing Chevy one more time in a tank top and the bandana. That you can now listen to us on Spotify. Kind of a big moment, Chev.
Yeah, it is a big moment. It is a big moment. We went backwards because, I was a long snapper, so I do things upside down. We went on TV first and then radio. Most people start their podcasts as an audio podcast because it's a little bit easier, but we didn't think it was easier. We went video and now we're going backwards. And, but we are on Spotify. We're going to get on iTunes and all that. So listen, subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch us, but you can also follow us on Spotify. It's great. But in other big news locally, we talked about it in the in the poem, the Calgary Sports and Entertainment Group and the city of Calgary, did they break ground on the new arena? They're starting to build the Scotia Place, the Scotia Fireplace. What's the name of the building?
Well, they're calling it this. Welcome to Scotia Place. They're calling it Scotia Place, but there's this whole thing going around the city right now because they're building the building literally like it's lit up with flames, on fire, and that's one of the things that it's one thing to give a building its official name and its sponsorship corporate name, but what are Calgarians going to call it? And that's really the big question right now. Chef.
Well, and that's the thing. For longest time, the arena was the Saddle Dome. When I moved to Calgary, and I believe when you did, it was the Pengrowth Saddle Dome, right? And then more recently, it became the Scotia Bank Saddle Dome.
However, everybody outside of its formal names, what did they call it? The Dome.
The Dome, right?
You can find me in the Dome.
Right. But it was a Saddle Dome. If it didn't have an official sponsor name to it, it was still the Saddle Dome. My fear is if Scotia ever leaves, is it the place? Hey, where are you going tonight? I'm going to watch a game at the place. What place? The place. The place. That is kind of catchy, but no, they need to give it a name. They need to give it a name. But pretty cool design. I don't know if Trey can throw it back up there. We didn't really look at it too much. But
and what do you guys think? So when I'm looking at this thing, Chev, that is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But what I see with my eyes now, I don't know if we have the budget for that. I see those flames on the top, burning. I see it as a big display, just like how you have that ring going around the arena. 24/7. So is that like a digital display of flames? Because that would be badass.
Well, if it's a digital display of flames, then it potentially could be a complete digital. If I was building that as a digital display of flames, I'd make it like the world's largest LED screen, so they can actually project things on the outside. Like
what I'm saying.
When the place is full and they want people outside in the concourse for the games like they do in the playoffs, they make that a screen. But yeah, it looks really cool. Obviously the dome was built in the 80s, probably for the Olympics in 88, right? It's built in 88. They couldn't host any of the large concerts because the roof didn't have the engineering to hold the load of most of the modern.
By the time the 90s came along, yeah, exactly, right.
And it's out of date. It's kind of cavernous. I like going to watch games there, even up in kind of the cheap seats. I always thought that was good. I went to watch a Habs game there a couple of years ago with my buddy, my boys. There's a little bit of nostalgia, but it's time for a change. After I went to Edmonton and Rexall to watch a concert and a hockey game in 2 days consecutive, I was like, okay, Calgary needs this, because it's not just the rink for the Flames. The rink is part of a whole revitalization of that area, and it started with the BMO Center that's been constructed, that just opened. It's part of the Stampede grounds. It's a big part of the fabric of downtown Calgary, but not just the cultural fabric, the economic fabric. And I'm not sure what the economics will work out at the end. I mean, it took years to get this deal. It was up, it was down. They were going to build it across town. Then they came here. Then Mayor Gondak came in, and then they
lost the deal.
Lost the deal. They revived the deal. The province came in, but I think people are going to be happy. There's always going to be those that are unhappy about using public money to help private enterprise.
Well,
but I think it generates a lot.
I agree with that. But like, let's be honest with a few things here too. Like, if we look back to the '88 Olympics, how many of us today are saying, "Oh my God, the Calgary Tower was what a waste of money"?
Yeah,
those ski jump hills as you drive west to Banff, what a waste of money.
Well, those are a waste of money because you can't even use them anymore because of the crosswinds. But
20 some years.
Yeah, but
the other day I was looking at them, like, okay, with that much of concrete, I'm trying to do the calculations in my head. It can't be that expensive to rebuild them, but probably if you put it out to tender, it'd be something like, I don't know, $26 million to rebuild a ski tower, right? Yeah. It looks like your Italian family together on a weekend, because I'm assuming your family all work concrete. You look like a concrete worker.
Yeah. No,
and just like go to town and just build us a tower. You could probably do it for like $1,200.
Yeah, maybe. But, all that infrastructure, the Olympic infrastructure, became obsolete when Vancouver hosted the Olympics in the heart of the Rockies, and everybody moved to Whistler. Bobsled, ski jumping, everything went out to Whistler, right? And even our bobsled track doesn't work anymore. But this infrastructure, this capital expenditure for the city is going to pay dividends. The hockey team plays there. The lacrosse team will play there. I don't know if the Wranglers will play there. So you've got so many teams generating money, obviously for CSEC, the Calgary Sport and Entertainment Corporation, but there's taxes, there's tourism, sport tourism, and then all the concerts. Now we can get the big concerts that roll through Edmonton and skip right over Calgary. And that has been a really a pain in Calgary side for a long time, because people were going up to Edmonton for concerts and stuff. So I think it's a great thing. I don't like the name Scotia Place. They need like the Scotiabank fire pit, or the Scotiabank hot place, the Scotiabank fireplace. I don't know what it is, but they need a name.
And that's the thing too. And Jamin kind of beat you too, because we were talking about this earlier, and you said, you know what, Sheldon, we got to call it the fireplace. I'm like, Chev, that's kind of been all over the radio all day long as a name, right? The fireplace. Jamie just brought it up. I don't think fireplace is edgy enough to catch it, though. You need like the fire pit. I like the fire pit. You need something with regarding energy, the flame dome or the fire dome. Although it's not a dome anymore.
No, it's not.
But it's got a roof on it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like fire pit. I could go with the fire pit.
And then it'll be shortened to the pit. And then people will be like, well, you're going to the pit.
And then the Edmonds is going to joke about us because it's not as nice as Edmonton's or something like that. You got to be careful about naming it, right?
Yeah, you really do. I mean, but I think Scotia Place is kind of bland. And like I said, if Scotia leaves the sponsorship game and it becomes Rogers, is it now Rogers Place? Like every other Rogers Place? I think it seems like there's 3 Rogers Places in Canada.
It's either Rogers or Scotia, right? Like we only have so many big multinational or billionaire companies that can take on the price of these naming rights, right? But
no, for sure.
So if Scotia gets behind it, though, awesome. Thank you, Scotiabank, for being a part of building the stadium.
Yeah, and it's pretty nice and it looks good. Excited to see that happen. Listen, we're gonna move topics here. I'm wearing the American bandana. I'm wearing it for a reason, right? 3 weeks ago, we watched Joe mumble and bumble through the presidential debate. Then the following week, President Trump gets shot in Pennsylvania. We talk about that.
Yeah.
We get off the air and I say, Sheldon, I said this to you last week. I said, Sheldon, isn't it crazy how every Tuesday we think, what are we going to talk about next? And then we just trust that something crazy is going to happen between Tuesday and Tuesday. I said that to you. And we didn't even like Joe Biden.
You know what it does to me, Chevy? You know what it does to me? It makes me think about those people that are on like a show like Alone.
Yeah.
Right? Like I had this whole movie script in my head that you go on a show like Alone and all of a sudden you lose contact with your home base and like just 12 weeks later you're dragging yourself out of the bush and you're taken over by the zombie apocalypse. I could imagine anybody that went onto a show like that that's like disappeared for the last 2 months and they walk out of this and say Trump's leading Biden in the polls. Biden's a vegetable that can't speak. Trump was attempted assassination. Biden just walks away. Like it's been the crazy, and this hasn't been like 8 weeks. This has been 2 weeks. So, absolutely insane. But the way that I look at it now with Biden walking out, Chev, you know what it hits me as?
What's that?
After the Hulkster and Kid Rock and everybody else comes out on stage in support of Trump, I feel like the Democratic Party themselves just assassinated Joe Biden. They were so big on this guy.
Well, I mean, listen, a few weeks earlier after that presidential debate, it was downhill. It was rolling quick, right? It was rolling quick. And again, I'm not professing to be a political expert here. I follow through Twitter and some of the news breaks, but you don't have to be a political scientist to see the president of the United States is 82 years old. He was barely able to string together a few sentences. Like, again, I'm not a guy that's against him or against his party. Like, I'm not for one guy or the other, but it was hard to watch that and say, man, this is a guy that you can get behind as the leader of your country. And I always say I'm down the middle. I just want to profess that I'm down the middle. I see both sides, but at this point I was like, there is no way this guy can run a country. And it went from bad to worse, when the following week he introduced President Zelensky as President Putin, like on the international stage. You're embarrassing.
He announced President Trump is running as his vice president. And he said he was so proud to be the first black vice president to a black president. Like this guy, Rubio just jumped in. He says, 5 p.m. tomorrow or 5:30 p.m. tomorrow. He's going to do a deep dive into this.
Yeah,
Chef,
go check
for the guys
Rubio's
like Rubio
show.
and for guys who are like me, I am a political junkie like you're a sports junkie. I followed this for years. This was not a new downturn for Joe Biden.
No, not a new downturn.
20 months ago. And it just got uglier and uglier. And you're watching everybody just kind of hide it, right? It's like literally watching, don't look behind the curtains.
Well,
and then the curtains got opened up and they had to
you
completely reverse strategies and just threw the entire Western world into chaos.
Well, and the problem is they had to convince him first that he was done. I mean, he was hanging on. He was like, I'm not going anywhere. A week ago, he's still in the fight. But, you could see the dissent. You could see the hardcore Democrats saying, we got to get away from this guy. And you could see what it was, because, again, let's fast forward. Let's not spend too much time on this. When they announced Kamala Harris as the new presidential nominee, the amount of money that rolled in, like $52 million raised in 3 days, because the old guy, Sleepy Joe, stepped down, and Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not saying she's great or not, but
I'll tell you what. Here's my take on this, and I'm going to throw this forward to our third segment because it's the same story, right? It's not like she stepped down and she stepped up and like, oh my God, Kamala's going to run for president. Here's the money.
No.
They were holding it back for weeks.
Yeah.
Forcing Joe. He was getting strong-armed. This was every bit as much of a political assassination as Trump's story was an actual assassination last week. Culminating in not the will of the people, the will of the donors.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what?
And the people that held back their money were waiting for somebody that they believe to be a viable candidate. Now, there's one more problem about this, though. Now, we're not Americans, so we can't vote in the primaries, but they have already had their primaries. Everybody voted for Biden. Nobody voted for Kamala.
Yes. It's
what's the constitutional implications of anointing the next heir? It's weird. It's a crazy time. I've never seen it before, and I'm 50. Just
And
about.
and again, Rubio's doing a deep dive on his show tomorrow. We won't give it away, but he poses a question right now. Joe Biden's resignation was submitted on a post by X that wasn't on presidential letterhead. It was a digital signature. Was it a coup? I don't know. But you know what? Tomorrow Rubio's going to explain it because I can't figure that out. What I do I want you to decide is Daryl McAvina puts it out there. Am I looking more like Bret Michaels tonight or Randy the Macho Man Savage? Ooh, yeah.
I'm saying you're Macho Man Savage all the way.
Ooh, what you gonna do? No, the Macho Madness. There's a Kingdom of the Madness here on the ride with Chevy and Nasty. I think we gotta take a break, Sheldon, because it's a champion's prerogative right there to get a glass of water. What do you think? Let's take a break.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
You know what I love? What I love, Sheldon. I was just asking what I love. You just made it in time.
Always.
What I love is that whenever we mention even the slightest inkling of a wrestler, which it was a great intro because Hulkster was part of the mainstream news last week.
Yeah, so he looked good doing it too.
He looked awesome doing it. But you mentioned wrestling and the comments just flow. We talk about Randy Savage or Hulk Hogan. Everyone's kind of got the stuff. I do the Macho Man voice. But you know what's great? Or what I wanted to ask, Hogan going on stage for Donald Trump, would the Canadian equivalent be Bret the Hitman Hart going on stage for Pierre Polyev?
Yeah, honestly, if you're going straight wrestling to wrestling, yeah, for sure that would be.
I mean, that's our biggest. That's our.
In fact, I mean, can that happen? Can you see Polyev at his next big, press conference or convention,
and then Hitman giving him the sunglasses?
Yeah,
Hitman giving him the sunglasses, just pulling them off and putting them on his eyes and just take the stage.
I'll tell you what, if in the West, not that Polyev's going to need a whole lot of help in Western Canada,
no,
but if you played whoever the Hitman endorsed, if he wanted to go political, which honestly I don't think he does.
No,
even Hulk said, "Listen, dude, listen, brother, I've stayed out of politics my whole life because I'm an entertainer, right?" But yeah, he felt compelled to get up there. He must be releasing a book or something like that coming up. But
he did a
great job.
You know what I was wondering about this? I know I'm going a little bit off track, but the Hulkster, to me, and I'm thinking back to when he was in his heyday, slamming Andre WrestleMania 3, he always looked like a 55-year-old man.
Yeah.
And he still looks like a 55-year-old man. Am I the only one that thinks that? Think back to Hogan doing a promo in the 80s with Macho Man. Think about him in the 90s in the NWO, in WCW. Think about him right now. Does he always look like a 55-year-old guy? Maybe even a little bit older. Did he always look like that? Because I feel like he hasn't aged, but he was never young.
It could be the skin damage from all that sun.
Yeah, maybe.
But the only difference I see is he used to have 24-inch pythons, and now they're like 22 and a half.
Yeah, no, he's still the man.
But he still got it.
He still has it. We should move on. We got a big show. Right. We got a big show. We want to keep the timelines tight. We're going to move to the CFL. Sheldon, let's start. We're not going to review the games. You know what? Let's actually be real with our friends out here. Let's be real with our followers. We talk about our followers. Last week after the show, Sheldon gets off. He's like, Chev, I don't want to do game breakdowns. He's like, that's not who we are. Like, yeah, we know the games are played. I don't want to talk about one quarterback stats versus the other quarterback stats. I want to do the stories. And I thought, Sheldon, you know what? That takes us back to the core of who we are, right? Like, yeah, you want to go watch CFL coverage, go to Three Down Nation, go to, I don't know, TSN, but we want to take some stories and talk about it. We definitely want to talk about some local stuff because obviously, you know, we're connected. We go to Stamps games or if you go to a Riders game. But yeah, I think we're changing it up a little bit this week. We're not going to go through every game because there's some people that actually don't care about it. But we are going to go through some of the stories. And one of the stories is, you know, the best team in the league, arguably, was the BC Lions coming into last week with the hottest quarterback. We even said it the week before. He threw for 451 yards. It was just ridiculous. And he comes in against the Stampeders who, you know, they're trudging along. We thought they were still trying to find their identity. And it was a hot Sunday afternoon that was played at McMahon. I went to the game. And man, the Stamps looked pretty good, Sheldon. The Stamps, it was a fun game. It was a super fun game to be part of. And the Stamps squeaked out that win. They squeaked out a win. I believe it was 25-24.
25-24, yeah.
And what the difference in that game was a safety. First of all, have you ever had a safety? Like you ever hit a quarterback and score safety?
I've been on the field. So it's funny that you brought that up because I was watching that. I was like, oh, have I ever, like, because I always remember that chance. Oh, they're on the 1 yard line, the 2 yard line. You got a chance for the safety. More often than not, they spring a guy open and they get out of danger. I've been on the field for a couple of safeties, but I've never been, and I've probably caused a safety by being responsible and taking up 2 blocks so that Will Grace could, or John Grace,
you know, your
or
teammate
Brian Clark could go breaking through and be the heroes of the moment, right? And afterwards they give me a quiet thank you right on the bench. But myself, I've never had the joy of taking a quarterback down in the end zone for the safety, because I got to think that feels awesome. That feels like closest thing to a defensive touchdown for a defensive lineman, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge swing, right? You get 2 points off it, plus you get the ball back in good field position, and your offense gets to go to work. So I told my kids, I was sitting with, well, actually one of my sons and his best friend. I said, boys, this is going to be the difference in the game, that safety. And it was, but I was impressed with the Stamps. They played well. They made big plays. The receivers, what I liked about the game is it looked like the Stampeders of old. They make a catch and then they fight for some of those hard yards. Wonderful return game. I believe it was Peyton. Is it Peyton Logan, the returner? Is that the
I think so.
Yeah. He was he was great. 4 punt returns for 107 yards. That's huge. And then obviously Rene Paredes, he's going in the Hall of Fame. He's going to be up on the wall, the Stampeders wall. He's going to be in the hall. He was perfect. And Jake, again, you know, we talked about who's Jake Mayer. You know, he's either up, he's either down. He didn't look like he was awesome, but you know what? 0 picks. And Vernon Adams, a quarterback on the other side, he had 2. So it was fun to watch the hometown team win. It was fun to see that. Rubio asks, if either of you scored a touchdown, what would your touchdown celebration be, if any? Yes, we want them acted out. You know what? It's funny. It leads into one of our topics we're going to talk about. My son asked me the other day, he's like, Dad, did you ever score a touchdown? And I went, I don't know where I found it, but I got a little screen clip of it on my phone. Maybe we'll play it one day. I don't think we can play it tonight. I don't think we'll have time. But the thing that I noticed from that clip, and we'll talk about it later, was the attendance. That game that I scored a touchdown was in 2007 versus Saskatchewan. It was an afternoon game.
Yeah.
And that section that we're looking at right there, like across, it was jam packed. I wonder if I could text this clip to Trey while we're talking. But it was jam packed, and we used to complain that those top 4 corners of the stadium were empty. And looking at this right now, this was Sunday afternoon. It was excruciatingly hot. But I mean, you're either complaining that it's too cold in Canada to watch football, and now we're complaining that's too hot. But this was the attendance for the game. That's what I was looking across at. And they announced 20,000 for that game, Sheldon. 20,000.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know. It doesn't look like
when has Calgary become a have-not city when it comes to a fan base, right? Because even when we played there, I remember my biggest pet peeve wasn't the 4 corners. It was always the start of the game up to the national anthem. You had 20,000 people in their seats, and it felt like the rest of the stadium looked like this. It was after I retired that I realized what a great tailgating city this is and stadium this is, and that people wouldn't file in until midway through the first quarter. I was watching that because I watched this one on TV. I was waiting for the stadium to fill up, and I was like, my God, nobody's there.
Yeah. It was nuts. And I thought, what is going on? Like, since when is it like that? And it's been since COVID. It's been tough. Like, I remember the years that I played from 2005 to 2000, I think it was 15. Yeah, 2015. The most packed the McMahon ever was the Western final against BC in 2008. It was jammed, absolutely jammed. That was the loudest it had ever been. But we always complained that we didn't sell out. We didn't sell out the top four corners. Well, now they covered up those top four corners. They don't even go for that. And now the bottom four corners, you look across, that doesn't even look like 5,000 people.
So yeah, and it doesn't. So why is that?
I don't know. Like
so like you bring up COVID, and I think COVID definitely changed things. I think like for a lot of people, you realize that, hey, if I don't spend a few grand on season tickets, I actually get to do what I was doing during COVID and still watch all the games. So I think that was one thing. I think we got trained to watch sports on TV. But how much do you think this has to do with the economy?
I think it's a little bit of that. Do you just think it's a little bit of that? Well,
like do you remember when it used to be like, you could just, people go to restaurants, people just spend money on whatever they want. Like, I look at my own family right now and I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy season tickets because I'm probably not going to make half the games, and I don't want to be bothered with like trying to sell off the other half of the tickets. And I'd rather save my money for something more meaningful. Not that football's not meaningful to me, but I think in a time when you take a look at a lot of people, what they're going through with whether it was layoffs or never got back to full-time work or whatever the case may be, I think even if it's something as simple as a $50 ticket for a family of four, I wonder how much that the economy has a impact on things right now.
You know what? It definitely has an impact. I know it has an impact, but there's other factors with the CFL. It's marketed to an older crowd. We were talking about this before. That older crowd is slowly leaving the earth, right?
If you're marketing to the 50 plus crowd, you got a diminishing number of people you can sell to every year. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, my kids right now would rather watch a receiver on Netflix than go to a CFL game because it's compelling stuff. And I'm not saying the CFL, I love the CFL, and we're trying to figure out what the issue is. And maybe if you can uncover the issue, then maybe you can start attacking. I think marketing to the kids, we need to get in front of the kids. Look, my son last week, he's been on that NCAA football game, college football, for the whole week. Years and years of people clamoring for a CFL game. It still hasn't happened. It's not so we're missing that. We're missing some of the edgy content. I mean, we have one carrier for the game. We have one, TSN. They do a great job, but they're the only people that carry the game. They're the only people that create content for the game. Everything is so exclusive. And when fans try to create content, they get shut out. We've talked for weeks, and maybe we'll get him on. Tom Elder, who runs the classic Stampeders Instagram page. Okay. He promotes classic games. He promotes players. He does a great job promoting the league, but he's fighting an uphill battle because all the digital rights for all the content are owned by TSN. And it's like they're sitting on a vault of content and they don't do anything with it. And everyone will say that what changed, in the 80s, when the NFL, and even the 70s, when the NFL and CFL were on par, when players were leaving the US to come to Canada to play in the Canadian football in favor of the Canadian Football League, what changed everything for the NFL was the creation of NFL films.
Yep.
And to this day, it's the creation of original content. You look at Netflix, you look at what's happening with last year, the success of QB. You look, or a quarterback, you look at the success of receiver now. Kids are buying into that. We're going to talk Formula One in the third segment. What propelled Formula One to one of the number one sports in the world because of its presence in North America right now was the original content show Need for Speed on Netflix. So CFL, I don't know if they can look at that model and say, hey, what kind of show can we create and put it on one of these streaming services? Because wait, let me just finish this point. People will say, well, the CFL doesn't have as big a fan base, but hold on. There's a show on Netflix called Last Chance U about a junior college in the middle of nowhere in the United States that was one of the biggest Netflix hits because of how they told the stories of these players that went there. And if there's one thing that the CFL has, is authentic and original football stories for guys that people won't see anywhere else, because this is where people go to take a chance.
So let's take a look at that, because I totally agree with that, right? But the thing is, it wasn't necessarily NFL Films was NFL Films, but they hired a marketing agency that was awesome at putting that together. These Netflix specials, people put their own money behind it. You know what they brought to the equation? Talent.
Yeah.
What do we have? We have TSN. For me, it should start with TSN. But what does TSN deliver? The same old experience that we've always had. Yeah, they've tried bringing in Davis Sanchez. Yeah, they've tried to bring in I can't say his name from Toronto, right? Some new faces.
Enoch Mwamba.
Mwamba. Yeah, Mwamba. I get it. A guy with a great story. But at the end of the day, what they put out isn't NFL Films. They put out CFL Wired.
Yeah, they put
a bunch of guys talking smack and acting like idiots on the sidelines. There's no compelling story to it. We need storytellers to tell the great stories that are on the field. The game's good. We need a couple extra camera angles, and we need a storyteller that they'll actually put in the money. And maybe it's TSN, because TSN's got to be, fighting for their sponsor, for their viewership and whatnot as well, right? For their ratings.
But again, I think also that exclusivity deal with TSN hurts the CFL. They should be giving one game a week to the CBC like they had when we started playing, when our career started. The Grey Cup was always a CBC game. Now that doesn't necessarily have to be. The CFL this year is going to have the Grey Cup on CTV, which is huge. That's big. It's going to be on national broadcast over the air, so everyone can get it. But yeah, give a game to CBC. Force the CBC or Sportsnet to create some content for it. There's not that internal competition. And without that internal competition, Sportsnet's gonna have a vested interest in devoting X number of minutes or more minutes to their sports desk. So there's that. There's the COVID thing. There's a lot, but
and along with that, though, along with the films, and NFL Films is what hit us when we were kids, watching Barry Sanders, right?
Yeah.
Watching
Walter Payton,
Rock'em Sock'em hockey in the NHL, because it did the same thing for Don Cherry was just as big a figure. We need to start getting this to where the kids are watching it, and is not on cable TV at 7:00 on a Friday.
Rubio, I'm going to answer two of your questions. What the hell is the CBC? That's the Canadian Broadcast Corporation. It's a government-run corporation. It's they used to do a lot more sports. They're going to be covering the Olympics coming up this week when it starts, but they also used to cover the CBC. Now, speaking of, to answer your previous question, your question about touchdown celebrations, I believe the video clip of my 2007 touchdown is ready. Trey, can you roll that clip? And I want you to look at the crowd. Look at the crowd and that same section we're looking at. Go ahead. See if we can get it up.
Playoffs in the West is a race. Henry Burris dropping it off. Touchdown. Randy Chevrier. And what we have so far.
Yeah, so I
a little gratuitous there, Chevy.
You know what? There's my
That's
first
awesome.
time.
I'm just jealous. I've scored 2 touchdowns in my life, both of them called back.
Yeah, no, that was a big moment. It was a big moment.
Wait, was that during the playoffs? Because they referenced the playoffs?
No, that wasn't even the playoffs. That was a regular season game.
Not the Labor Day game.
Not even. No,
that was what McMahon Stadium looked like back in the day.
And I mean, granted, it was a Riders game where a lot of Rider fans show up, but I mean, you saw that same section that we saw from the picture. That's the same section, and the fans were jumping, right? And as for the touchdown, it was awesome. But it's funny because anytime we ran that play in practice, Henry Burris always ran it in. Always ran it. I never got the ball. And on that play, if you noticed, I was completely open. Like both guys, the guy supposed to cover me, rushed Henry, and the linebacker rushed Henry. He had no choice but to throw it before he was even ready to. He threw it off his back foot, and I looked at it in the air. I was like, man, I actually turned around and was right at my face, and I caught it. I didn't even know what my touchdown celebration is. I didn't practice it. That was it, Rubio. I squatted down like I was taking a dump, and then I spun the ball, and then someone slid into it. That's all I had in that moment of celebration.
So after my pro career, my next touchdown was playing Calgary flag football. And my very first touchdown, I took it, I crossed in. I just did the traditional, slammed it into the ground. I got a 15-yard penalty. No celebrating in Calgary flag football. And
no fun league.
Are you
comparing your flag football touchdown to my CFL goal line touchdown
from a guy that never played flag football? It feels the same, dude.
That's like me saying I scored the Giants Super League's Div 3 ball hockey game winner to send us to the playoffs, comparing it to, I don't know.
Chev, mine got us to the playoffs, brother. I don't know. It's different without the crowd there, right? But I'd say flag football is a little bit like playing during COVID. Listen, I played 8 years pro. I started every year of my career.
Yeah,
I played some high level games, and I know that the stakes are higher. But I'm just saying.
No, I know.
When I finally got a touchdown to count was in the flag football league, which is not as far below CFL as you would think. Well, okay, maybe it's way underneath, but it felt good. That's what I'm trying to say. When I first got my official touchdown, it felt good. And I have the right to celebrate it, and I have the right to say it was every bit as good as what we just watched there on the screen.
Yeah, you know what? It was awesome. You know, I'm reading Jamin's comment that Trey just put up, and it was he looked 3 times and finally threw to you. You know what?
This was what Jamin looked like, because Jamin was my quarterback, right? He'd be looking down the field. Oh, they're covered. Look at me. No, down the field, me. No, finally he just just.
You know what?
Right? Never thought I could catch it.
But this is the funny thing. So James comment brought me back to the actual weeks, like we put in that package for many weeks leading up. And most of the times I was a blocker, and then we threw in a little wrinkle where I blocked down on the end, and then I pop out like I did. And like I said, every time we practiced it, Henry Burris would just roll out, fake the handoff to Joffrey Reynolds. Everyone banging down like it's going to be a 2-yard run, and then Henry just run to the cones, right? Every time. On that one, I remember in that moment just looking, and the ball was at my face. I was like, oh crap, I better catch it. But the funny thing is, George Cortez, the great George Cortez, offensive coordinator, former head coach of Saskatchewan, on Wally Buono's staff, we'll talk about. George Cortez used to tell me, he's like, Chevy, he's like, you're the 4th option on a 3-option route. So I was never, he used to tell me that. I was like, Coach, you going to throw me the ball this week? Chev, you're the 4th option, and we only got three options on this route.
He's honest.
He said it every week, and then finally he threw it to me, and I'll never forget. I'll never forget that. We had a good chuckle, and I got another touchdown a few years later in Winnipeg. Drew Tate actually threw me the ball, and that was a great Iowa quarterback, I believe. Was he Iowa or Iowa? No, he was an Iowa quarterback.
There's nobody great ever came out of Iowa. But there's some decent players that made pro, but the great ones like Brock Purdy were Iowa State.
There you go. There you go.
But you know, I think with that, Chev, though, let's keep these trains going on time here. You snuck in that you scored 2 touchdowns professionally to Sheldon's 0. When we come back, we're going to have to revisit our records in our post-football prognostication career.
Prognostication career. Are we talking about Wally too? We got to give a little left to Wally.
We'll touch on that when we come back. But you know what? There's a few other things we want to get back to, because I am absolutely intrigued and angered by what I saw at Formula One. But guys, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to cover all that and more, and see if we can keep this train on schedule to get out by midnight. All this and more coming up next on The Ride. Choo-choo.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
All
He
right.
made
All
it
right.
back.
You know what? That's the thing. There's the banter that we see up there on our screens, and then there's the banter going on behind the screens. No, Sheldon's not late coming back from peeing every break. It's hot in here. I go grab a glass of water. I go get some feedback from the team. I go see how we're doing in the ratings.
Did I just lose a bet? I think I lost $50.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what? Great segment. Covering the Stamps, talking about the dwindling in attendance. I don't know what the solution is, but I will say this, and we should make a plug. I will say this. Jay McNeil, president of the Calgary Stampeders, former teammate of ours, came out to our men's mental health night. He's doing a great job. Like, he's doing what he can. He's spending the money where he can. He's doing stuff not only in traditional football circles. I know he's doing a lot of work with new Canadians, getting new Canadian crowds interested in football. Coach Harp, if you remember that name, he's a local football coach, does a lot of work with the East Indian and Eastern Asian community, trying to merge the interest in football. Daryl, my $50,
baby,
on the way. So they are putting in the work. It's not like they're just letting it die. He's doing everything he can. And part of that was celebrating the great Wally Buono, like long overdue, right? At halftime during the game on Sunday, they brought Wally up. Everybody who follows the CFL would know that Wally is a Hall of Fame coach for both the Stampeders and the BC Lions. He led them both to Grey Cups. He had a winning record for both those teams. And I think it was only fitting that they put him up in the presence of both organizations. Sheldon, you have any Wally stories that you'd like to share?
I do.
Yeah.
I was actually, it was my only real Wally story. I've met him, a handful of times. Obviously my wife's, talked to him after games and things like that. But for me, it was when I knew I didn't want to stay in Saskatchewan after my contract had come up, and I was looking around the league, and of course you talk to Wally in BC and the Calgary Stampeders, Montreal, talked to a few teams, and Wally had the reputation of being so cheap with his contracts.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. He would go out and he would pay the big dogs, the big dollars. But if you're a Canadian guy, he would grind you. And he ended up giving me not a bad deal, but it just couldn't compete with Calgary with the tax structures and all that stuff that goes, that I was thinking about then. But you know what he said, Sheldon? He goes, you come to BC, and what we don't make you in the regular season, you're going to make in the playoffs. He goes, we build winners, and we get to the playoffs. And that's, what do you want from your career? Do you want rings or do you want dollars?
And so what'd you do?
I signed with Calgary.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's a great story.
And yeah, they got it. And Wally got a couple more rings in BC. So
well,
but I tell you, he's a legend. The guy's a legend.
He's a legend.
I don't dislike the guy, and I'm not even calling him cheap. He knew how to run an organization.
Well, I remember one day, so I didn't play for Wally. He left Calgary. That was during the Federic era, where that the Stamps were sinking, and that U.S. owner was it Bill Federic or
Federic. No, you're talking years before that, I think.
No, Federic and Fred Fateri was the general manager, and the
guy
after
Wally.
The guy wanted to play his son, and so they fired Wally Buono. Wally goes to BC. He winds up scooping up Dave Dickinson back from when Dave came back from the Chargers, and he had a great record out there. He did well, but I remember walking on the field one day in BC Place, and Wally has a Montreal connection. There's the Italian connection. He's from the East End of Montreal. There was always a little bit of talk between him and I before each game, and one day he came up to me and he said, Chevy, he's like, you could play in this league forever if you price yourself right. If you try to be the highest paid long snapper, highest paid backup D lineman, long snapper in the league, you're going to be done in 2 years. He said, but if you price yourself right, you could play forever. And I'll never forget that advice, because I didn't have an agent, and you have such an adversarial relationship with your general manager, who was John Huffnagel at the time with me, and or Jim Barker or whoever was there. It was always like negotiations were always tough, because you didn't know, like, oh, do these guys hate me or not? But when Wally gave me that advice, it was like, okay, let me just make sure I'm priced right so I can play a long time, which is what I wanted to do. And I did. So I always appreciated that. And it seemed like he was that kind of guy. I'm sure there's some guys that have some terrible Wally stories, but when you think about The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He was cut by Wally Buono. Wally Buono told this guy who dreamt of playing in the NFL, who came from University of Miami, that he would never be a professional football player. He stuck him on the practice squad, and Rock to this day credits a lot of his success with the exit meeting and the talk he had with Wally Buono. So, long standing CFL coach. Just a couple of things to throw out. He was 4-time coach of the year, 7-time Grey Cup champion. That's a lot. That's a lot. And he has the most regular season wins by a head coach, 282, most first place finishes, 13, and most Grey Cup.
What I really look at is look at some of the people that worked for him with him over the years, from Huffnagel to Tom Higgins, Roy Shivers, absolute legends in the CFL, and the long list of quarterbacks that he was able to find and develop and it's just it was the kind of thing when you had Wally at the head of your organization, it didn't necessarily mean your playoffs every year, but you were there more often than not, and you're going to get a few cups along the way and just get the best out of the talent that you had. And that's the book on Wally. He did it for 30 years. Right.
So so let's keep the ship moving. It's the ride with Chevy and Nasty. Rob Evans shows up, says, "Hey, sorry, was at 911. It was a busy night." Rob, we got you. Guess what? You didn't hear it at the beginning, but we are now on Spotify. So if you want to download the show, go right now. All of you, just click on your Spotify app. Follow us on Spotify. Oh, look at that. We added even the Spotify logo there. Jesus, love it. Trey is the best. Trey's the best. So follow us at Chevy and Nasty. I think on Spotify, you got to look up the ride with Chevy and Nasty, but we're on all the socials. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to keep it going. Last week, we said we're not going to break down last week's game, but we're going to continue with the picks. Last week, I was 2-2. Oh. Sheldon, 0-4 with the picks. Oh, you blew it.
Chev, but here's what I'm going to say. You can say I blew it. Just like I said at the end of last season, sometimes you're right, even though you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
I was right.
Yeah. I went 0-4 last week, but I'm still 15-13. You know what that means? It means I was 15-9. That's playoff caliber, baby.
Yeah, well, you got to pick it up this week because I'm coming on strong. The one I'm most proud of is the Edmonton Elks versus Red Blacks. You were guaranteeing that the coaching change was going to force those players to step it up, and I guaranteed that the Edmonton Elks would find another way to lose, and they did. Yeah. So that's the one that
another one-score game, though, right? Another one-score game. It was 6 points.
And Bo Levi Mitchell got his first win, so I was very happy about that. I was very happy for Bo, and he played well again, finally getting the win. So maybe the tide turns in Hamilton. But let's look ahead to week 8. Let's throw our quick picks in there so that Trey can tabulate this, and I can add to my streak, and hopefully you can add to your losing streak. Saskatchewan and Montreal, 5-1 versus 5-1. Who you got?
Oh, that's crazy. That's insane. And the Riders, I was wrong on last week. They went into Winnipeg and won 19-9 with a backup quarterback. Can you do it in Montreal? Is Montreal going to lose another game? No, you know what? I love what the Riders are doing. But this is going to be a comeback down to earth week. Alouettes are going to win it at home this weekend.
Alouettes are going to win? Yeah. Well, okay, Alouettes at home. I'm going to take the Alouettes as well. That's my team. That's my team. Jason Moss, my buddy. I want Montreal.
I don't pick my games based off of my buddies.
I do
off of who I think is going to win.
I do. Next. Or the colors of the jerseys. Calgary at Ottawa. Going to Ottawa. Ottawa building on that beating on the Elks. Do you think Ottawa's got it? I'm going to pick Calgary in this one. I was impressed with their play. They went toe-to-toe with the line. They tamed the Lions. I'm coming out right out of the gates. Calgary.
Listen, if Calgary wants to do anything this season, they have to go into Ottawa and win. Ottawa, they beat the Elks 2 weeks in a row. That's their winning streak, right? They have not sold me that they're a competitive team yet. I don't love where the Stamps are at. But I love what Brett Monson's been doing with that defense. Last week, they were dialed in. They looked like they're reading their playbook.
They killed them on the special teams.
And even got the ground game going with Mills. It's going to be Calgary over the Red Blacks.
Okay, Calgary Red Blacks. Winnipeg, Toronto. I'll let you start it off.
Oh, dude, I am until Winnipeg wins 3 in a row. I am off the Winnipeg train. What I'm seeing from Caleros this season, I know he's been dinged up, but I'm scared that I'm seeing one of the CFL greats just settling in at mediocrity. I don't know if it's his fault. I don't know if it's the weak offensive line, or I don't know if it's Buck Pierce as the offensive coordinator that's just not accepting what they have on offense and what they have to do to win. But right now, they don't seem to have a path to winning games. So, you know what? That's a long spiel. I still like Toronto, even with Cameron Dukes. It's a well-built team, Toronto over Winnipeg on Saturday for sure.
I'm taking Winnipeg. I think we're going to see bad Cameron. I think we're going to see good Zach, and Winnipeg over Toronto's my pick. And then finally, Hamilton, Edmonton. You know who I'm going for. I'm a Bo Lever. He got his first win. He's going to get his second one. I don't even have to break down anything. Bo. Let's go.
I love it. I love it, Chev. That's a good pick. If you pick Bo every week, you're going to end up with an extra 3 or 4 wins this season. But this, I'm still believing in those Elks. They've got to turn this around. This one is back at home, and they look great at home 2 weeks ago. So I'm gonna put my money on the home team. I'm gonna go with the Elks. They've at some point, McLeod Bethel Thompson's gonna turn this thing around.
Yeah, maybe, but he's doing all he can. So I don't know if it's on him. It's on someone else.
I like it that I call you if you bet on Bo Levi every week, you'd win 3. What about me with McLeod Bethel Thompson?
Yeah, you keep going on that, guys. So listen, Sheldon. I know you're looking at the clock and you want to keep the train on track. We have such a good segment plan, based on something that happened in the F3 or F1. We are going to have to do that after. It's going to be an overtime segment. We won't do it just yet. We're going to do it in a minute. It's going to be our midnight overtime segment. We'll take it for about 15 minutes, but you're going to want to stay tuned for this segment because it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun talk. What I want to mention now before we get out at midnight is that this week, Sheldon, the movie I have been waiting for 4 years is coming out. Deadpool versus Wolverine. The Canadian, Ryan Reynolds. The Aussie, Hugh Jackman. The drama that Ryan Reynolds
and
got.
Wolverine had a bit of a history in Canada, did he not?
Oh, yeah, he's a Canadian superhero. Yeah. The marketing, I don't know if you guys have been living on the rock, or maybe I just have the algorithm pinned, but the amount of marketing that they're doing for this movie makes me feel like the movies of old, when they really marketed the crap out of a movie and they didn't just rely on it going to streaming service. And Ryan Reynolds is putting a lot of his own money into this. He's funny, he's witty, and from all accounts, the early reviews are that this is the movie. If you have superhero movie fatigue, this is the movie that turns it around. If you're not a big fan of superhero movies, you're gonna love it. I am so excited for this movie. I got my ticket. Actually, you know what? I don't have my tickets yet. I'm not sure because it's going to be a late one either Thursday, or my kids are on vacation for 2 weeks with their mom. Do I wait for them to come back?
Chevy, I'll tell you, I'll put it out there right now. I will go with you to see this movie.
Okay. Well, we should aim for Thursday. But guys, if you're a superhero fan or not, this for me is the movie of the summer. I think it's going to have all the entertainment that you're ever going to want in a movie. It's going to be rated R. So don't bring the little ones. But it's going to be a fun movie. I'm so looking forward to this. I should have worn my Deadpool t-shirt today, but Hulk Hogan took precedence. So listen, let's take a break here on the ride. Sheldon could go have a pee, go fill up the water. We're glad that you're here. I just saw Bruno joining in. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit of Formula One, but really the circumstance around what happened and how you would react, because it's absolutely captivating what happened on the weekend. We'll talk about that next right here on the ride.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Yes, sir. And a nice plug for the Cochrane Movie House. If you're going to go watch that Deadpool Wolverine movie, our buddy Hal, who hosted the men's mental health movie night, go to Cochrane Movie House. One of the best spots to watch it. I'm probably going to watch this movie like 7 times. So I'm gonna hit it at all the spots. I'm gonna go to Cochrane. I'm gonna use my landmark passes because I've got a subscription there. I'm gonna hit it. I'm going to hit it everywhere. I got to go with you. I'm going to go with the kids. I'm going to go by myself. I'm going to go with my girlfriend. I'll take my mom. I don't care. I am going to watch this movie. So this is, for me, this is like when the first Batman movie came out with Michael Keaton. I watched that movie like 10 times. Okay. It was so good. I'm so excited. And now I'm excited for overtime.
Yeah. Hey.
I love that song.
Yeah, I know you do, Chev. You know, honestly, I've been now since with Shaw, we now have the Disney Channel, which I wasn't going to subscribe to because like I'm 49, my kids are a little older. You know what, dude? I've been doing the deep dive in the Marvel universe again. Now, I am going to say anything after Endgame kind of sucks, right?
Yeah.
But to go back there from start to finish, they start throwing in these little splashes, little like 5-minute short films, 10-minute short films. And it's good. It makes it interesting. And so this weekend with my boys, I watched with my one boy, my other son, we sent off to Grand Prairie by himself to go see a friend, but which is nerve-wracking. Have you done that yet? Just send your boy off.
No.
They did like an 8-hour road trip up to Grand Prairie, 16.
No.
Holy cow. Talk about nerves. And then he flew back today by himself and he came back healthy. He loved it.
That's awesome.
But we watched Infinity Wars, and then we watched Endgame, and it was like, God, I haven't seen that for like 4 years. It was awesome. Loved it.
What's your favorite Marvel movie?
It totally is the Infinity. It's such a long period of time. I love how they ended the series. I really did. Right. Yeah. I'm a sucker for that. But along the way, you know, I liked the first. Like I still remember, was Iron Man the best movie ever made? No. But was it the most revolutionary take on Iron Man ever when it came out? Yeah, it was.
And Tony Stark was, or Robert Downey Jr. when he said, "I am Iron Man."
Yeah,
he is Iron Man. I'm going to tell you, for me, my favorite one was Civil War, and for the same reason I talked about why I'm anticipating this Deadpool movie. I am such a nerd for the back end stuff, the stuff that most people don't know when the movie comes out, like the business side of it. Civil War, again, we talked about this. Marvel had started their entire universe based on the characters that it owned. It had sold the rights to Fantastic Four and the Mutants and Spider-Man to all these different companies, Sony, Fox, all of them. So Marvel couldn't make movies with those characters. And when they made Civil War, Spider-Man was such a pivotal character in that storyline that they bought the rights to their own character back from Sony to use him in the movie. And when he appeared on screen, man, it was I'm getting goosebumps because I love that stuff. Yeah. And then fast forward to the most recent Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
When all 3 Spider-Mans that everyone thought that was impossible and they kept it under wraps, like nobody knew. They didn't leak any news. And if they leaked news, they were killed. Like it was that top secret. And when they appeared on screen, all 3 of them doing the classic, "You're Spider-Man, I'm Spider-Man."
Yeah.
For me, I love that stuff. And that's why I'm so excited for this Deadpool movie, because Hugh Jackman did 30 years of Wolverine. He retired. They did Logan, which was one of the best comic book movies. And he did Logan. And he's like, "I'm done. I can't play this character anymore." But when when Disney bought Fox and all the rights for all those mutant characters, including Deadpool, including Wolverine, and all the X-Men reverted back to Marvel/Disney, and they were going to make another Deadpool movie. Ryan Reynolds said the guy to bring the mutants to Disney was going to be Wolverine, and it had to be Hugh Jackman. And he worked on him for years to get him to agree to the role. So that's why I really am excited, because they have such amazing chemistry. If you followed the backstory, again, I've talked about this before. I'm such a nerd for this stuff when it translates to, hey, we actually made the movie. That's where my anticipation comes from. Not necessarily the movie, but everything that built up to get it made.
Well, when I think of Disney, I don't necessarily think of Ryan Reynolds and his approach to a character. But, you know, if he's behind it, like, because there's always a danger of this is just getting hyped up, right?
Oh, yeah.
But this is his money. This is his vision. He's the one that went and spent his own money just to shoot some of the, like the trial scenes, right? Just
The
to,
test
just
footage.
To yeah, exactly. So I gotta believe this is going to be the way to wrap up a great franchise. Because I'm sorry, Deadpool. You talk about another one that rewrote the book on how it's done, taking it from the comic book to the big screen. It was awesome, right?
Yeah.
He's done such a good job. You got to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't know how we obviously got off track like we usually do. We're in overtime. That's what happens. Let's get to the story that we wanted to talk about in this segment. This weekend, Formula One. I used to follow Formula One. I was off for a number of years, probably 15 years. Since Michael Schumacher retired the first time, I was out of Formula One. I missed the whole Lewis Hamilton, who was kind of one of the greats. I missed the Max Verstappen, and I don't really follow. But this weekend, a little interaction caught my eye, and it wasn't a little interaction. In the Formula One world, it was huge, but it caught my eye, and I listened in, and we want you to listen. Now, the audio is a little bit sketchy. It's a little bit it's not dodgy, but you're going to have to pick up on the accents. But we want you to listen in and listen what happened between an exchange between McLaren driver Lando Norris and his tech crew as they were guiding him in the last few laps of the race, as his running mate, his teammate, was behind him in second place, Oscar Piastri. And just listen to the exchange, then we'll break it down.
Okay, Lando, the position behind is Oscar's 3.8 behind, then Hamilton and Leclerc are 12, and Max is right behind him. We need you to save more tyres, please, and we do want to let Oscar through.
You should have boxed him first then, surely, no?
Doesn't matter.
I mean, it does. For me, maybe.
And Lando, we still think you're using the tyres too much. Turn 4, turn 11, and the rear's exit. Turn 6, turn 9. Oscar's 3.5. I know you'll do the right thing. Okay, Lando, 10 laps to go. We think both cars are using their tyres too much. Just remember every single Sunday morning meeting we have.
Yeah, tell him to catch up then, please.
Lando, he can't catch you up. You've proved your point, and it really doesn't matter.
He's on much quicker tyres, much pressure. He's good. I mean, I would have tried to undercut anyway. If I didn't, I would have gone low.
Mate, we did the stop sequence in this order for the good of the team. And Lando, there are 5 laps to go. The way to win a championship is not by yourself. It's with the team. You're going to need Oscar, and you're going to need the team. Lando, there is no threat behind. Hamilton is 20.3, then Leclerc, then Max. If there's a safety car now, it's going to make this very awkward. Please do it now.
Yeah, you don't need to say anything.
So on lap 68, Lando Norris pulls over for his teammate Oscar Piastri, gives him his first Formula One win. So if you're following along, basically the pit crew had a strategy that they wanted the other guy to win. And Lando, who was so far ahead, he's hanging on. And again, I'm not professing to be the biggest fan of Formula One, and Trey is. We'll get him on in a second. But what I was hearing is that you're asking an elite level athlete to pull over so someone else can win. And when you look at the comments, you look at Twitter, you look at the world of social media right now that's going on, it's kind of divided. There's a lot of people saying that Lando was being very selfish in that he wasn't listening to his team. He wasn't doing what was right, quote unquote, what is right. But then there's people saying, how dare they ask this guy to pull over? And Sheldon, do you want to give your take, or do we want to bring Trey on now?
I'll give a take really quickly. Like, this one just blows my mind, because in the culture of sport, this play is designed to spring receiver X, but receiver X ran a good route, but receiver Y was in the clear with nobody there. He gets the ball. He catches the ball. What's he supposed to do? Slow down and hand it off to his teammate? I don't have any understanding of what I just heard. And I'll tell you what, you said it was the pit crew's strategy going into it. And I've got to believe it. These things usually aren't about the pit crews. This has got to be the money, who we are promoting, who we want to see win this thing. And maybe I'm wrong. Like, I don't know Formula One. I know it's a huge thing.
Well,
I know this is the top form of racing in the world. But yeah, you know what, guys? So you've heard about Trey doing a great job for us off the air all this time. Our young broadcasting student that's helping us out with this. Trey, why don't you come on here right now and tell us give us your thoughts on this? What the hell just happened in Formula One this weekend?
Hey,
Trey.
There he is.
how's it going, boys? First
Yeah.
appearance.
So now, Trey, you are actually a Formula One guy, right?
Yeah. I'm a big McLaren fan. I have been since basically the Drive to Survive show came out, so been following for a while. And same as you guys, I was astounded on what happened this weekend. It really was.
But you're seeing that it's polarizing a bit. Like you have one opinion, and I want to know what your opinion is and where the context comes. Because I can't give the context on Lando's career. I haven't followed it enough. I was telling Sheldon off air, and I used to be a McLaren, or not a McLaren fan, Formula One fan. And this reminds me back in the days when McLaren, way back when, was trying to pump up Gilles Villeneuve because of the name of his dad. And they really want to pump it up. And Damon Hill, who was the lead driver on McLaren for years, they had him trying to back off so that Villeneuve can be the next up-and-coming star, to the point where Villeneuve won the Drivers' Championship one year. But after that, he fell off the map because he was never that guy. Is this kind of what we're seeing? Like where do you fall with this?
So the reason why so many people are upset, it's not mostly between teams, because Lando is like the number one driver of McLaren. The reason why it's so shocking is because Lando is like the only other driver on the grid that is able to catch Max Verstappen in the points. So throughout the whole year from March to December, they are given points based on how well they do in the race. And Lando and McLaren have done a really good job in the last 2 or 3 months of catching Verstappen. And so when he was basically handed this win because of strategy that went too well, McLaren didn't really think he was going to end up in first place.
Right.
And then he does end up in first place. And then they're like, actually, that's not how we wanted that to go. We need to give that spot back. And then, Lando's stuck in like the middle because he wants to win the race to try and catch Max, but his team is telling him that the strategy that they had is not going to plan.
So they're pulling their starting goalie to play for next season or whatever they like. I'm still trying to understand this. So Lando, who was in position to win the race, if he won the race and continued winning races, he would catch the number one guy.
But they still would have gotten, the team would have gotten the same amount of points because they would have had a 1-2 finish. So in the constructor standings for the constructors championships, nothing would have changed there. And that's why I don't understand why they asked him to pull over.
I'm kind of speechless with you. I don't really know why they wouldn't want their number one guy going for the drivers' championship as well. Because like you said, they already had 1 and 2 locked down. So you're going to have maximum points for the constructors championship, and they totally screwed Lando in the drivers. And now instead of only being, I think if he'd won the race, he would have been 69 points back, which a race win is 25. He's now like 76 or something. So
do you guys remember the Buffalo Bills playing the Tennessee Titans after Doug Flutie brought Buffalo all the way to the playoff game? And they had a bye week, and coming out of the bye, instead of putting their starting quarterback, Doug Flutie, who brought them all the way to playoffs, Buffalo puts in Rob Johnson and gets blasted. That was the Music City Miracle. It kind of reminds me of that type of insidious type of thing where, like, even if we're listening to the conversation that they were having, they started him off on, oh, your tires, we're worried about your tires. Yeah. And then he's still building. And then it's like, oh, I'm protecting you. You know what? I got that talk. In 2014, I pulled a hamstring, and it was on a short week between Hamilton and Edmonton. And for the Edmonton game, they're like, listen, we're going to sit you this week. I'm like, I never missed a game with an injury. Like, I don't want to be sat. Like, no, we need you for the playoff run. They literally said this. We're protecting you from yourself because we know you go too hard. I'm like, I don't need protection from me. I've never missed a game with an injury. I don't need this. And they're like, well, we're not asking you, we're telling you. And at that point, I didn't have a choice. And at that point, that was the last game I had played in that season.
Yeah.
And I felt that. So when I heard that exchange, I picked up on it. It was so I felt it personally because I've been there.
I'll take it a step further and say that if you're in that position, like you've been there and you felt it, there's an agenda going on that has nothing to do with your ability.
Yeah.
You're being squeezed out. I remember still when I was with the Rough Riders playing in Hamilton, and it was Ron Este, I think he wasn't the defensive coordinator, but kept pulling me out of the game. And they're up there in the stands, and I was having this monster game. But they wanted to, I think it was promote Scott Schultz, who was a hell of a defensive lineman. I'm not saying I don't have a bad word about Scott Schultz, but I was tearing it up. 2 backfield tackles, all these plays. And I would literally, after a play, I would stand up there and I would look to the press box and I would challenge my coaches. If I had the balls, I would have flipped them off. Because in my mind, that's where my headspace was at. What do you mean get off the field on second down?
Yeah.
I'm tearing it up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I felt that. Like, what do you mean? I'm gonna sign an injury paper? I'm not injured. I prided myself on never missing a game with an injury. I was injured at times. I was hurting at times, but I never ever missed a game. Never. You remember that year, Sheldon? I snapped with my hand in a cast.
Yeah.
Remember that year?
Yeah.
I'm the only person that ever snapped a perfect season with a hand in a full cast because I didn't want to come off that field.
I heard you did a lot of off season or a lot of like off field work with your right hand and that cast just to make sure that you're good. But good on you. It paid off for you. So Trey, so you're saying that the team will still benefit whether like finishing 1 and 2. There's no difference.
Yeah.
Is this become a money thing? Have they given up on? I don't even know the guy's name, but I'm gonna know it after tonight because I'm
on
feeling
Lando
right now. Lando, is Lando getting squeezed out? Is he getting replaced, or what? What are we seeing here?
No, he is like a top prospect. I mean, he's probably like 25 now. Young guy, lots of career ahead of him. It's truly unbelievable why that would even cross their
They're
mind.
pushing him out of McLaren.
Like, and how do you feel if you're Oscar Piastri, the young Australian, you get your first win, but it's kind of like that. I don't know, like if it was handed to him in that way, would you feel like, yeah, I'm a champion, like this is great? Like, I don't know, like in that sport where it's so hard to complete a race, like those vehicles. I mean, I followed F1 enough to know that it is so hard. Forget about finishing in the top 6 to get your points, but it's so hard to just finish the race. Even finishing in 10th means you might have bowed out at the 70th lap or the 60th lap. It's so hard to get to the end when you're in that position where you built a 5 to 6 second lead on the guy in second place, a guy you've competed your whole life to be number 1. They never compete to be number 2, and you're being asked to pull over. It blows my mind. It blew my mind when I saw it. And that's why we're talking about this. Like,
you got at that point, I think you got to call an audible and just say, guys, what we're doing is working. Just finish the race, right?
Imagine back to the sport we love, CFL. Team is competing. They can make the playoffs. If they win the game, they stay into the division, but they play first round against the best team in the league. Or if they lose, they cross over to play a very mediocre team. And the coach says to Rene Paredes, greatest kicker in the CFL, hey, Rene, we need you to miss this kick.
Chev, I think it goes even beyond that. You talked about earlier about Wally Buono and his greatness. I was there in Calgary for the first year, like with the Fatteris, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you guys can have whoever you want on this team, but the second string quarterback is going to be my son.
Yeah.
Right. And it was gross. And I mean, it was Frederick. And I'll tell you what, nothing against Frederick. That guy worked. He was a good guy in the locker room. He wanted to earn his keep, but it always just felt gross. And forever and a day, Calgary, because of that administration, would lose free agents because it's a Bush League move. I still don't understand why they're doing it. It's just I don't know. It feels like something you do in Holland or Germany or Switzerland or some socialist country where, hey, let everybody get a chance to win. It's a great story. Good news headlines. Hey, let's nominate Kamala as president. Yeah, she'd be a great president. Yeah, Kamala, you're next. Joe, sit down. You win.
Yeah, you know what? You're wrapping up all the points from tonight, and it's pretty awesome how you did that, Sheldon, by the way. Obviously, you weren't using your right hand as much as I was, because I wasn't thinking about that. But yeah, no, I think as a competitor in any sport, in anything you do, you don't want to be number 2, and you don't want to be asked to take the back seat, especially in the heat of competition. I've been there where I thought I was going to be the starter on a team, and I got this subtle pat on the shoulder, and it was in practice. And I got the talk and said, we know what you can do. We want to see what the other guy can do. Yeah. But that was in practice. It was a little bit easier it wasn't easy to swallow, but I couldn't imagine in a game. You know what it was, Sheldon? Again, football. Cornelius Anthony.
Yeah.
Cornelius Anthony not signing his contract for next year, right? And then they bench him in the playoffs in favor of Rob Rodriguez, who now is a great coach in the NFL and the college ranks. I'm not sure who he is, but last I think he was in the NFL. But at that time, nothing against Rob Rodriguez, Cornelius Anthony was our starter. And they offered him a contract, and he just said, I don't want to sign it now. I want to wait till the season's over, concentrate on the game. And what did they do? They benched him, and we lost because Rob Rodriguez got hurt, and then we had to move Scott Coe to middle linebacker.
Hell of a rush, or a hell of a quick hand, but yeah.
It seems like these plans backfire. So Trey, what do you see the future of this? Like, I haven't followed on the backlash of this or the fallout, but do you see this backfiring on McLaren? Maybe in terms of just team unity? Because I got to think that's got to affect the morale there.
Yeah, the backlash online was crazy, just like you guys. People are crying for McLaren to make even a statement about it, apologize. Probably not likely going to happen, but explain what happened. Because like you said, the team unity, this could really throw a wrench in between two teammates who they're pretty close, Lando and Oscar, and they've never really had any problems for the last 2 years of racing together. And I mean, contracts are up in 2026. This could throw a monkey wrench into things.
But I also saw the victory celebration, and that's a big deal in Formula One when you spray champagne on the winners. And Lando did not spray his teammate. He sprayed the third place finisher. He sprayed one of the officials on the stage on the podium, but he did not spray Oscar. And you can tell that's a big deal.
Yeah, and Oscar also said, well, he didn't say, but it was pretty obvious that he felt it was his first victory too. That was kind of tainted, and you could kind of tell just in the interviews after, and his body language. Lando never sprayed him. He just sprayed Lewis and the guy that they brought up from McLaren and they kind of showed that Oscar wasn't really that interested and that happy for having his first win. It was kind of got this black eye on it now.
But people are calling him out for that. Do people have reason, Sheldon, to call a guy out for being pissed off?
So here's the thing, and Trey, that's why I'm so glad that you're on here right now, because I just heard it and I wouldn't live it, but now you're talking about Oscar's first win, a big moment in his life. Well, maybe sometimes it is time for the vet to to step aside with grace, even if it's just for one match. Hey, you did great. We're going to pull you, right? Hey, we're up 40 points. I know you need another 50 passing yards to set whatever conference record, but we're going to get the kid in there, right? Maybe there's something to be said from the other side that I do get. It just seems wrong to pull a guy out when he's that far in front. And then I just thought it was funny that they're both burning out tires. They both could have lost. They both could have wrecked, and they would have ended up with nobody winning. That'd be like Chevy. If when you went in for me, you wouldn't give up the field. I'm like, it was my turn. I want to go on, and you just wouldn't let me on, right?
Yeah,
push me back to the sideline, right? That'd be
no.
I can't imagine teammates doing that. There's a bigger issue here, but Formula One is one of the biggest sports on the planet. And
I've seen Maxie do that once in a while. I've seen Maxie do that when they used to put TP on. Maxie's like, no, get up.
Oh yeah. Well, that's That's no, that's right. Yeah, I was going to say it's different, but no, it's the same.
It's kind of the same, but I think there's a pecking order, and when you mess around with the pecking, listen, athletes' confidence doesn't matter what sport doesn't matter how much money they make, and it doesn't matter what sport. Confidence is the number one thing that athletes have that either make him or break him. When you talk about a guy getting the yips, he gets the yips because of confidence. It doesn't matter what sport. And you plant that little seed of doubt in an athlete, like, hey, wait a second, you don't believe in me? That can go deep and that can ruin a guy. And we've seen it in so many sports. We saw it in the Flames when they benched Matthew Tkachuk a couple of years ago when he was playing his style of hockey and he got one too many penalties in that one game that made them lose a game. And they're like, no, we're going to bench him. And he was like, these guys don't have my back. And he waited and he waited. And guess what he did? He had the season of his life and then he bolted to Florida. And now he's a Stanley Cup champ. And I firmly believe that was because the coaches played. They turned the screw a little too tight and it snapped. And I think that could potentially happen in this situation. It was a very odd situation. I don't like it for any athlete, especially when the athlete's at the top of the game. I'm not talking about a guy that's, maybe coming down. Like as Trey said, this guy is a young guy. He's an up and comer. I'm curious to see, and Trey, you would know this being a Formula One fan. Like, again, we talked about Formula One has blown up because of that show in North America. Someone told me that today, that they have people that never watch sports watch Formula One, get up early on Sunday mornings to watch because of that show. And for years, Formula One could not penetrate into North American market except Montreal. And now they've got a Formula One event, I believe, in Miami, in Las Vegas, in Montreal. I believe there's one more, maybe Daytona.
In Austin.
In Austin. So they are huge in North America because of that show. Is this season being recorded? Like, will we next year see this drama unfold and get some backstory to what happened on the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been recorded the whole season, and there'll be an episode on it for sure. I don't know how deep they will dig, if anybody will say anything. They'll just be like, oh, it's great to get Oscar's first win and kind of brush over. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Netflix goes around that one.
Well, that is definitely fascinating because I learned more about Formula One this week than I've ever have. Because for me, Formula One was something I watched in Montreal back when I was a kid. It's kind of awesome to see how it's grown. But I'll tell you what, guys, he's Randy Chevrier. He's Trey Smith, our producer. You finally get a chance to meet him. And I don't know, are we going to start talking a little bit more Formula One? It's funny. The friends that I said like had gotten really excited about Formula One again, they're all Italians and they all have Montreal connections, right? It's something about Italians and fast cars, right?
And Ferraris. The year I went,
yeah.
I believe it was 19.
Well, McLaren's not Italian. Where's McLaren's made out of?
England.
England, yeah.
Yeah, I was 1993. Me and my buddies went general admission to the Jacques Villeneuve track in Montreal, and we watched Jean Alesi win with the Ferrari. We stormed the track. We were in pit row, and that was the last time. That after that, they put up barricades and fences because you couldn't because of the Italians, and it was amazing. I used to love Formula One. I was a huge Michael Schumacher fan. I started with the Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna era until Ayrton died, and then Michael like dominated for years and years, and then he retired, and then unfortunately had his ski accident, which I know he's still alive, but he's kind of been hidden from public sight. There is a great Netflix special on Michael Schumacher, but I should get back into it. I just don't have time. But I was captivated, not just because of the Formula One discussion, but really that discussion we had sort of can transcend all sports. And I thought, great job, Sheldon. Great job, Trey. Thanks for breaking it down for us. I think we should end it now, guys. Great job to all of you for showing up and joining us. Remember, you can follow the show on all socials at Chevy and Nasty. So Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X. And then we are The Ride with Chevy and Nasty on Spotify. This is brand new. So if you want to download this episode, it'll be up probably tomorrow, Trey.
Yeah, I'll have it up in the morning. Yep.
He'll have it up in the morning. You could download it and listen to your drive. Tell a friend. If they don't like watching YouTube videos, tell a friend. We are now on Spotify. We love you guys. It was a great night. Thanks for coming out. Any last words, Trey, Sheldon?
Thanks for having me on for my debut appearance. A lot of fun to talk about. Something I'm pretty passionate about.
Awesome, guys. Those of you that stuck with us tonight, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. And we'll be seeing you guys all next week, same time, same station, right here on The Ride.